On this board here, you see the overview of the GROW model. GROW stands for Goal, Reality, Options, and Wrap Up. And before I go into the details what the individual columns mean, I'm explaining to you why I'm calling it the Business Navigation System. And that is because when I explained the GROW model as a review technique to people, people were not really getting what I was saying, like, what's the goal of the meeting? Or what is the reality? They were confused, and I found myself explaining the logic in terms of a navigation system, and they really got it easily what I was talking about. So when we talk about the goal, it's the same thing as the address that you enter into a navigation system. When you drive to a new place, like when you have a new goal, you put in the address first. You would never go and start driving around wildly and go, oh, let's go really fast, so that we get there fast and then go, where is it we're actually going? But that really happens often in the business environment because people work in the habit from the past and not necessarily in the right steps for the future. Reality is an assessment of where you are in the present moment. And when you're driving in the car, it is the current position where you're at right now, so you can see how far away you are from the goal you want to be at. In options, you're talking about the different route options. Well, if I want to get to a certain goal, I could take this route, or I could take another route, or a third route. Depending on the circumstances, you might have different options that you can go. And it is important to eventually decide for one option, because otherwise you're going to jump between the 2 or 3 ones you have. The fourth point here, the wrap up, is the precise current driving directions. When you are driving in the car and the voice tells you, please turn right at the next corner, then you know, okay, I have to turn right at the next corner. So GROW really ends here with a wrap up where we're talking about what am I going to do next. Now I'm taking you through the different points under the individual headers. Here we're starting with the goal. We've talked about that in part 2. This is where you use the SMART goal from part 2 in the business navigation system. Nothing to add here. You do that for projects as well as for annual goals. The goal of the meeting is really important to do that at the beginning of a meeting. I often see people and they come into meetings and go, so what are we talking about now? Or does anyone have an agenda? Or they go and look at the boss and go, so what's up today? So a lot of times people show up in meetings not as if they were running them, but as attendants, and they watch TV and see what happens. So when you facilitate a GROW with someone, you ask the question, so what is your goal of the meeting? So that the person coming into the meeting can think about, okay, what do I need to have at the end of this meeting that I don't have right now, so I can move forward in my task. The topics then are the things you have to talk about to reach the goal of the meeting. And topics can be things like, I'm going to give you an update about something, and then I'm going to give you my proposed solutions, and I really want your approval for something or your other solution for something, so that the manager can go in and already knows what kind of topics you're talking about. Column 1 in GROW is by far the hardest column because the brain is just not trained to work like that for most people. So people go in and they talk about their problems or they jump into the random future, but very few people go into a meeting and have clarity in mind where they want to land in the next hour or 2, whatever they have as time. So spend time on practicing column 1, because once that is aligned, the likelihood that the outcome of GROW is really good. In reality can be really short, because here it's all about assessing where I am at the present moment against this goal. So you can ask the direct report, so where are you towards that goal? Like if you have to sell 1 million a year, where are you with your sales? Am I at, oh, I haven't even sold yet? Or am I at, I'm almost there? So you listen to the direct report assessing where they're at, and then you go ahead and say, hey, do I have specific feedback for that person? Or do I see it the same way? And if you have the same view, you can move through those points fast. I've seen cases where the employee goes in and says, I'm done. And the boss thinks, well, you haven't even started yet. But I've also seen cases where the employee was very unhappy. Oh, I should be further. We should be in that and that state, but I'm not. And they're really frustrated. And then the boss goes, well, wait a minute. For where you want to go with your goal, you're completely fine. You're even ahead of where I thought you would be. So it's important to do image checking here, like see what the person thinks and what you as a manager think, to say, hey, now we have a common understanding of the current position. Latest here, you can go in and check assumptions. For example, when you hear things like, well, that goal is really too difficult, I'm never going to get there. Latest with that comment, you know that the person hasn't really bought into the SMART goal yet, so they will most likely also not deliver on it, because they will act according to their belief system, and that's in their imagery. Once you've clarified assumptions, you go to column 3, and column 3, you do that at the beginning more than later, because here you decide which options you really want to go forward with. If you want to say you want to grow sales in a country, you can have your own people there, you can send people there to sell, you can work with some other representatives locally. So there might be different options, and you first ask the employees what they want to do, and then you give your own solution. What we very often find is that from a conditioning in school and childhood, people sit and wait what the boss has to say, and then they go, yes, sir, and then they do it. But really, Grow is not about that. Grow is about having the people talk about what they really think they could be doing. So you want the ideas of the employees, and then you can still add your own if you have different ones. And then you together select the solution you want to work with. Once that solution is clear, often in a few following Grows, you don't even have to do options anymore, because it is clear which route you're going to take. The last column, the wrap up, is about what are the concrete actions you're going to do out of the meeting? Are there any obstacles in the way? And what are the milestones? And this one is really interesting, because people often have a rough idea what needs to be done, and they say, oh, I'll do this by Friday. And then you ask them, so are you there? Are the people there? Ah, no, on Thursday there's a bank holiday. Ah, no, that person's on vacation. So you have to make sure that when you talk about the precise steps coming out of this going forward, that you really have clarity on what you can really do. So it takes some time to think through the actions here to really make it happen. When I work with people for the first time, or I know they're not extremely good executors, I'm going to have them write a to-do list. And the to-do list says who does what by when. And I really have them write it down. Everyone looks at the screen and sees that, to make sure that the next time you meet, that they've done at least some of it, or ideally all of it. When I work with people longer, I'm not going to have them write to-do lists if I know they're really good executors. Like there's some guys I work with, if they tell me, hey, I'm going to do those 5 things, I know that next time they have done the 5 things. So don't bother people with to-do lists unless they really help to get things done. The one thing I notice when I have people write to-do lists, don't have them write on a piece of paper with a pencil, because that's going to be their image only, but have it written on a board, on a projector, in an Excel file. Because when people have to really write down who does what by when, often only then the thinking process starts, and they check for what really has to be done and what really needs to be done by when. So overall, this is a flow of the Grow model. And people ask me, do I really have to do this always? And the answer clearly is, of course not. If you can get to your goals without any of this, be my guest and just do it your way. But if you struggle to get to your goals, this is a way that time and again has shown and proven to work.